For the first time in history, autonomous underwater vehicles called Subsea Baby sank a Russian submarine worth approximately $400 million that had been putting pressure on Ukrainian cities for a long time. According to a statement by the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, this development is considered a historic turning point for the Ukrainian Navy. The Subsea Baby systems neutralized a Russian-made project, 6.3 Varshavyanka-class submarine for the first time. The submarine in question carried 4 Kaliber cruise missile launchers, targeting Ukrainian territory via the Black Sea. With the platform disabled, this capability was eliminated, significantly reducing the operational flexibility of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in the region. Kaliber missiles had previously caused serious damage to thermal power plants, transformer stations, and other critical energy infrastructure in Ukraine, leading to prolonged power outages across the country. Therefore, the submarine's decommissioning had notable consequences, not only militarily, but also in terms of infrastructure security. The operation revealed that submarines long described as difficult to detect, and therefore referred to as black holes in military circles, no longer hold the same advantage against modern unmanned systems. Autonomous underwater vehicles have taken on a role that directly challenges the traditional understanding of naval warfare. It was previously known that Russian ships were forced to leave Sevastopol Bay due to pressure from surface unmanned naval vehicles called Sea Baby. The disabled Varshavyanka-class submarine was also deployed to the port of Novorossiysk following this process. According to experts, the cost of a Varshavyanka-class submarine is approximately $400 million. Due to international sanctions, building a modern equivalent can cost up to $500 million. This disruption at sea was not an isolated incident. Around the same time, a similar logic was seen coming into play on land. This time, the focus was not on large platforms, but on points with high personnel density. According to information shared by the Ukrainian side, a coordinated unmanned aerial vehicle operation carried out on Friday had remarkable results on elements affiliated with Russian military intelligence. The statement was made by Robert Brovdy, one of the commanders of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces. According to Brovdy, in this operation targeting the 14th Brigade of the GRU, which is part of the Russian General Staff, more than 120 personnel were disabled to varying degrees. It was stated that some of them had completely lost their functionality in the field, while others would be out of service for a long time. It is not just the numbers that are important here. This statement means that an operation, which was previously announced in a limited way on December 26th, is being detailed for the first time. Brovdy specifically emphasizes that the shared data is based on operational intelligence but has not been included in the official casualty system. The reason for this is that visual verification, which is required for such records, is not always possible. The operation targeted a command post and personnel accommodation areas in the Berdyansk region, which is under Russian control. It was carried out that same night as part of a broader plan targeting different military points in Crimea and eastern Ukraine. This detail is critical, because what we see here is not a single operation, but a deep and simultaneous pressure model. The Kiev administration aims to systematically pressure not only the front line, but also command, logistics, and human resource centers. According to information provided by Brovdy, the operation was carried out jointly by the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces and Special Operations Units. 5 separate structures were targeted. One of them was hit twice in quick succession. It is stated that the systems used were domestically produced F-4F-P series unmanned platforms. The main point of interest is this: if the shared data is correct, this activity indicates a loss of capacity on a scale rarely seen by the GRU in a single day. Experts note that such results could directly affect not only the situation on the ground, but also the decision-making chain. The picture that began with the deactivation of an expensive platform at sea is completed by the targeting of human elements on land. And the emerging picture is becoming increasingly clear. This is no longer just a process of testing vehicles, but also structures and operations. While platforms at sea and human resources on the ground were targeted, another issue began to emerge more clearly. This time, it was not about military units or bases, it was about energy and the functioning of cities. For the fourth time since September, the Luch combined heat and power plant in Belgorod was shut down. Following missile activity carried out during the night, significant structural damage was reported in key sections of the facility. Regional Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov stated in his initial announcement that there had been no civilian casualties, but confirmed that there was significant damage to the engineering infrastructure. According to Russian media, the Loch power plant is one of the critical facilities that runs on natural gas and provides electricity and heat to a large part of Belgorod. What is important here is not a single attack. The same facility has faced similar activity for the fourth time in recent months. Previously, the power plant and associated transformer stations were targeted, causing prolonged outages in many settlements, including Belgorod, Stary Oskol, and Shebekino. Previous incidents on October 5th and November 10th left thousands of households temporarily without power. This recurring pattern eliminates the possibility of coincidence. What we are seeing here is a systematic pressure model established through the energy infrastructure. As the night progressed, the activities were not limited to Belgorod. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin claimed that a total of 15 unmanned aerial vehicles were neutralized over the capital. However, the statement did not provide clear information about the results. It merely referred to falling debris. Following these developments, temporary restrictions were imposed at Sheremetyevo Airport. Flights were managed under a carpet plan, requiring special coordination with the authorities. So what does this carpet plan mean? Simply put, it is a security procedure that is activated when an unusual situation is detected in the airspace. Civilian aircraft takeoffs and landings are not completely halted. However, every movement is made based on momentary assessments and with approval from the center. The goal is not to eliminate risk, but to keep it under control. Therefore, even though passengers often don't notice anything, air traffic slows down significantly. And when you put all this together, the following question arises. Are these developments occurring at the same time at sea, on the ground, and in cities' infrastructure really independent of each other? As pressure increases on energy infrastructure, command centers, and critical platforms, this picture inevitably raises the question, who will stand up to this? With what and how? At this very point, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky brought a striking appeal to Europe back to the agenda. Zelensky once again emphasized the need to establish a joint European military force of at least 3 million personnel. At first glance, this seems like a large number. However, Zelensky's reasoning is quite clear. According to him, Russia aims to establish a military structure of 2 to 2.5 million personnel by 2030. It is difficult for Europe's current structure to respond to this scale. Therefore, he argues that while each country maintains its own sovereign power, a common umbrella must be built on top of that. What is important here is not the number, but the admission. This call is an indirect admission that Europe's capacity to act individually is no longer considered sufficient. A similar message was delivered at the Munich Security Conference about a year ago. However, as he himself clearly stated, no concrete steps have been taken during this period. Now, developments on the ground are bringing this issue back to the table. Zelensky particularly emphasizes the following point. This structure will neither be an alternative to NATO nor aim to compete with the US. On the contrary, it will focus on the one thing NATO lacks today: rapid decision-making and field-tested experience. This is where Ukraine's role comes into play. Zelensky argues that his country can play a core role for Europe in terms of real field experience, technology use, and logistical organization. He particularly emphasizes that the shared systems have been tested in practice, not just in theory. However, this debate is not just an internal European issue. During the same days, at the Economic Forum held in Davos, Switzerland, a different topic was on the agenda: Greenland. U.S. President Donald Trump made harsh statements about Greenland's future and raised the possibility of economic pressure on some European countries. These remarks raised new questions in Europe, not only about the economy, but also about the security architecture. Greenland's strategic importance is critical here. At a time when Arctic competition is intensifying, there is already a U.S. military base in the region, and this area is becoming increasingly important. Trump's rhetoric has caused unease in some European capitals about NATO's internal balance. And that's where the chain is complete. Increasing pressure on the ground, repeated moves targeting infrastructure, extraordinary measures implemented in the airspace. And then these political statements. None of these can be interpreted in isolation. That's why Zelensky's call is not just a military proposal. It is a simple but difficult question directed at Europe. Will the current structure continue, or will a new balance be established? When we put all this together, much more than a single event emerges. Platforms decommissioned at sea, structures targeted on land, repeated pressures on the energy infrastructure, and the political calls that follow. All point to the same question. Are these events truly immediate moves, or are they pieces of a much longer-term transformation? And perhaps the real question is, who will be the first to notice this change? If this analysis has given you a different perspective, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This will directly support us in continuing with similar content. In our next analysis, we will explore another dimension of this process that remains behind the scenes. See you in our next analysis. Wishing you all a good day.